They stole my parking lot, so I took away their guests' parking. It started when I arrived for the block party and found the community lot cordoned off. A string of orange cones and a laminated notice blocked every space. Reserved for HOA events only. No unauthorized parking. At first I thought it was temporary. Then I remembered the months of subtle theft. Neighbors' guests had been using my lot for weeks. They circled and parked in my spaces while I watched from my driveway. My home had a paved parking area I paid to maintain. My guests were told to park 3 blocks away. I left polite notes, but they disappeared. I asked the HOA board at a meeting and got a shrug. We were told to be flexible for community needs. Flexibility, it turned out, meant my paid parking for my family. Gone. One evening, a wedding party took over my lot. They left trash, trampled my landscaping, and laughed when I asked them to move. The HOA president waved them off like they were entitled royalty. For months I swallowed it and tried to be neighborly. Then the final straw came. My elderly aunt visited for a week and had to walk half a mile from her car. She fell carrying her groceries because there was nowhere near the door to park. That night I looked through my grandfather's papers, more out of habit than hope. He kept every deed, every easement, every tiny note about our parcel. Buried in the file was an old recorded map and a clause that mattered. The map showed the parking loop that fed the subdivision ran in part over our land. The clause said the access easement required the landowner's written daily permission for vehicle entry. Permission, the document made clear, could be withheld for repeated nuisance or abuse. That meant my paid lot could not be used as a public overflow without consent. I hired an attorney to review the language. We gathered evidence of repeated misuse, photos, timestamps, neighbors' statements, and the HOA meeting minutes where complaints were dismissed. Early Monday, I filed a formal notice with the county and the HOA. By Wednesday, a notice of revocation was delivered. The next morning, I went outside and unlocked a new heavy gate I'd had brought in. It wasn't flashy, just a steel gate bolted into the ground with my name on the sign. I put up a clear notice: private parking, authorized vehicles only. At first, the neighborhood laughed. They thought it was a stunt. But when the first guests arrived that afternoon, they found the gate locked. Cars idled, horns honked, and the cul-de-sac turned into a line of confused drivers. Delivery drivers backed out. Caterers called and canceled. People who had always expected a quick space now had to park on the highway shoulder. Board members stomped to my door demanding answers. I showed them the deed and the revocation order. They paled when they read it. You could see the panic in their eyes as they realized the legal ground I stood on. That night, my driveway was empty and peaceful. Their cul-de-sac was a mess of frustrated guests and angry homeowners. Phone calls filled my line. Threats, apologies, and offers of cash came in waves. They sent a committee to negotiate by Friday. They begged for temporary access while they figured something out. I let them sweat for a week. I wanted them to understand the cost of taking what wasn't theirs. During that week, my mother could park at the door. My family hosted dinner and everyone walked right in. Meanwhile, their guests walked blocks to reach party tents. Finally, the HOA offered to restore access. They promised to pay for repairs, sign a binding agreement, and stop using my lot as their overflow. I agreed to reinstate limited access, only under written agreement and with fees to cover maintenance. They had to promise no unauthorized events in my lot ever again. They had to post signs and hire a monitor for large gatherings. They had to compensate my family for months of lost use and landscaping damage. They agreed begrudgingly and signed the papers. Today, my parking lot is private and respected. Guests arrive and park where they should. The HOA now budgets a new line item for guest parking alternatives. My elderly aunt can park at the door without fear, and my family doesn't dread every holiday anymore. All because they assumed small thefts wouldn't matter. Tell me, would you have locked the gate?